Hello, scholars. This is Mr. Seeley. I'm very excited to be bringing you another music class lesson today. Today's lesson, we are going to be talking about the staff. Everybody say the staff. Well, what's a staff? I'm glad you asked. The staff is something that we use to be able to read music. It's something that has lines and spaces on it. It has lines and then it has spaces in between those lines, okay? So the spaces, and we put notes on the lines or we put notes on the spaces, and that tells us what those notes are supposed to sound like. And each line or space has a different letter name or a pitch. A pitch is the sound that the note makes, okay? Every letter name has a certain pitch. And we put them on the staff and it tells us what we're supposed to play. Okay, now how do we do that? Well, there's a process that we use, and the first step is we need to identify whether the note is on the line or the space. Second step is what line or space is it on. And then the third step is we sing this little song that helps us remember, what the lines and spaces are. And we're going to get to that in a second. But first, let's start with our opening song. Come on over to my piano. All right, here we go, scholars. I will do my best. I will do my best today. I will do my best today. I will do my best, nothing more and nothing less. I will do my best today. Gonna have a great day. Gonna have a great, great day. Gonna have a great, great day. Gonna be so great, makes me wanna celebrate. Gonna have a great, great. I will do my best today. I will do my best today. I will do my best today. I will do my best, nothing more, nothing less. I will do my best today. Okay, back to the staff. So we already said one of the first steps of how to identify notes on the treble clef is identify whether the note is on the line or space. What does line or space mean? Well, if we look here at our staff, let me zoom in a little bit more, we see that there are, let me get a little line here. So we see that there are lines, and we see that there are spaces in between those lines, like here, 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 and so on and so forth, okay? So you see a bunch of different things. We see that. Now let's count the lines, okay? So we have one line, second line, and we always start from the bottom, okay? There are 5 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Don't worry about this right there. Don't just pretend like that's not even there. Sorry. All right, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 5 lines. Now let's count the spaces in between those lines, okay? This is a space in between. That's the first space, second space, third space, fourth space. Okay, so there are 4 spaces, say 4 spaces, and there are 4 spaces, 1, 2, 3, 4, and there are 5 lines, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm gonna grab a note. So there are 4 spaces. This is what a note would look like if it was on the line. Well, let's start with spaces. 4 spaces and 5 lines. Now this is a quarter note, which we learned about in our last video. So 4 spaces and 5 lines. Say 4 spaces. 4 spaces. Say 5 lines. 5 lines. Very good. Now, we need to know where we put a note on the staff determines what the sound is, okay? So I'm going to go back and forth. I'm going to play a few notes. So if I put a note here, this is what the sound is. If I put a note here, ignore these notes over here. If I put a note here, has that sound. If I put a note here, if I put a note here, let me move it back around. Oops. Sorry about that. All right, if I put a note here, has that sound, and so on and so forth. Okay, so where I put a note on the staff determines what it sounds like. Now, how do I know that those notes are those notes? I'm glad you asked, and I'm going to tell you. But first, let's talk about the lines and spaces again. So I know a note is on the space. Actually, we'll start with the lines first. It's a little bit easier to tell. If we look here, like this note right here, I'm going to move this note down. So right here, this note, this is a little thing that I tell myself that helps me remember what the lines and spaces. So scholars, if the line passes through the note, that means it's on the line. If the line passes through the note, that means it's on the line. Okay, so in this case, this note, the line is passing through the filled in part of the note. If the line passes through the note, that means it's on the line. I'm gonna put another note on a line here. Let me take this one. There we go. So this note is on the second line, okay? So if the line passes through the note, that means it's on the line. Let me zoom out a little bit so you can see, okay. The line passes through the note, that means it's on the line. So with right here, you see a line passing through, you see a line passing through. Not on this one and not on this one, and there's another one passing through here. Let me move this to the third line. There we go. Okay, so that one is on the third line. Notice that as soon as I move it to the third line, it goes upside down, because that's just the rule of music, that when you move a note to the third line or above, it's written upside down. That's the rule. Okay, so if the line passes through the note, that means it's on the line. So what about the spaces? Now, if you look here, this note is in between two lines. There's no line passing through it, okay? If the note's in between two lines, that means it's in the space. That means it's in the space, okay? So there's a line passing through, there's a line passing through. There are no lines passing through it, it's in between two lines. That means there's a line above and there's a line below. So if the note's in between two lines, that means it's in the space. It's in the space. Just like this one. And the note is in the space because it's in between this line and it's in between this line. Okay. So we have a note that's on the first line, say the first line. Right here we have a note that's on the second line. And we're not talking about the stem. The stem doesn't have anything to do with where the note is placed. That doesn't tell us whether it's on the line or the space. This part of the note does. Okay. So this is on the first line, second line. This note is on the second space because the first space would be here. It's on the second space. And this note is we skipped the third space. This note is on the fourth space. And this note is on the third line. Okay. So I'm going to put a note over here. There we go. Now let me put this note down here. Very good. Now, this note is on the second space. Say second space. Second space. Well, how do you know? Because I know that the note is in between two lines. Okay, it's in between two lines, this line and this line. And it's not on the first space, it's on the second space. Okay. Now, what if I put a note over here? Let me move over here. This note is on the third space, okay? It's not on the first space, not on the second space, it's on the third space, okay? And let me put a note over here. Let me put this. Now this is what the fourth space would be, but I'm gonna try it on the line. This note is on the fourth line because we have the first line, second line, third line, and fourth line. It's right there, okay? So let's do this. So now we know, or by looking at it, we could tell the first step of how we identify notes. Let's go back to our instructions. Identify whether the note is on the line or space, because that matters. Because if a note is on a line or a space, depending on what line or space it's on, tells us what the note is. And we're going to get to that next. All right, scholars. Now, for our second step, the second step of how do we identify notes on the treble clef is what line or space is it on? So we talked a little bit about that. I'm going to talk a little bit more. Is it on the first line, second line, third line, fourth line, or fifth line? Well, let's get rid of all these notes. Start with a little clean slate here. Get rid of all those notes. Okay, well, let me zoom out just a little bit. All right. So if we look here, is a note on the first line, ignore this for right now, we're going to get to that in a second. So is a note on the first line, second line, third line, fourth line, or fifth line, or is it on the first space, second space, third space, or fourth space? Remember, there are 4 spaces and 5 lines. Say 4 spaces and 5 lines. Very good. So this note, as I said earlier, This note is on the second space. So I'm just gonna label all the space notes and we're gonna go over them. First space, second space, third space, fourth space, okay? This is our first space, this is our second space, third space, fourth space, okay? Notes can be put in any order on any line or any space, but once you put them on the first space, it is assigned a certain letter, and we'll get to that later. First space, second space, third space, fourth space. Now we're gonna go to the lines, okay? First line, second line, third line. As soon as I hit that third line, it went upside down because that's the rule. Fourth line, fifth line, okay? So we have four spaces. Remember, if the note's in between two lines, that means it's in the space. If the line passes through the note, that means it's on the line. Those are just the rules. Okay, so we have 4 spaces and 5 lines. These are the notes that are on the staff. Now, there are notes that are way up here, and there are the notes that are way down here. But we're only going to focus on the notes that are on the staff, not below or above. We'll learn about those later. So, 4 spaces. So we need to identify whether the note is on the line or the space. That's our first instruction. Identify whether the note is on the line or the space. Second, what line or space is it on? First, second, third, or fourth space. Or first, second, third, fourth, or fifth line. So that's our second step. Well, before we go on, let me see if you can tell yourself. Let me test you a little bit because I want to make sure you guys are learning. It's making a little bit of sense to you. So tell me, to see if you can tell the answer before I tell you. And we're only going to worry about spaces. Is this on the first space, second space, third space, or fourth space? I'll give you 5 seconds. That's on the third space. Very good. If that's what you said, then you got it right. So what you do is you look at it and you count up from the spaces. Don't worry about the lines. We're only doing spaces right now. So I want you to tell me, is this on the first, second, third, or fourth space? I'll give you 5 seconds to answer. This note is on the second space because the first space is here, second space here, third space here, fourth space here. Now, is this one on the first, second, third, or fourth space? It is on the fourth space. 1, 2, 3, 4. And this one is on the fourth space. So there's only 4 spaces. There isn't, 10 spaces. There's only 4. So it can only be one of 4 possible answers if it's on a space. Now, we're going to test you a little bit on the lines. Is this on the first, second, third, fourth, or fifth line? Give you 3 seconds to answer. It's on the fourth line. How do I know? Because if I look at the lines, 1, 2, 3, 4, it's on the fourth line. Okay, don't worry about the stem. It's only about the colored in part of the note. Now, is this note on the first, second, third, fourth, or fifth line? Give you 3 seconds to answer. It's on the first line because there's no line above down here. Those aren't lines. Those aren't anything. So this is on that first line. This is our second, third, fourth, or fifth line. So what about this one? Try and trick you a little bit. Is this on our first, second, third, fourth, or fifth line? Take a few seconds to answer. It's on our fifth line. 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth line. Very good. Okay, so you can mix and match. It can't just only be lines. Each measure can have lines or spaces. Okay, so I can move this note here, move that there. You can have notes. You can have notes, all kinds of different notes. It doesn't just mean that, they can only have spaces in one measure and then lines in the next. Nope, you can have as many, you can have whatever you want. But for learning purposes, I'm just doing spaces and then lines, okay? So now we're gonna go to our third step, which I said what we're gonna do, but then I went back. Now we're gonna go forward. Once you know which line or space the note is on, we are going to sing the Treble Clef song. What's the Treble Clef song? I'm glad you asked. The Treble Clef song is the song that we use this is a song that I was taught when I was in middle school, and that was about 25-something years ago, and I still learned it to this day. Shout out to Mr. Phillips, my music teacher at School of the Arts, class of 2002. Woo! So the song that I was taught helps us remember what the notes of the treble clef are. Once we know whether it's on let's go back. Identify whether the note is on the line or space. That's step one. What line or space is it on? Is it on the first, second, third, or fourth space? First, second, third, or fourth, or fifth line. That's step two. And step three is singing the treble clef song. What is the treble clef song? I'm glad you asked. Now, if we were paying attention earlier, which I'm sure all of you were, when I put up this staff, I had these letters here. Well, first of all, you may be wondering what this symbol is. This symbol right here is called a treble clef. Say treble clef. Treble clef is the symbol that tells us that these notes are these letters, okay? Or that the first space in the first, second, third, and fourth space and the first, second, third, and fourth, and fifth line are these letters. That's what the treble clef tells us. If it were a different clef, these letters will be different, but we're not going to worry about the other clefs just yet. So the treble clef is for like high instruments like the flute, clarinet, saxophone, trumpet. They play the treble clef. The lower instruments play different clefs, and other instruments play different clefs as well, such as the violin and things like that. So the first space is F. That's just the rule. And F sounds like this. So if I put a note here on the first space, it's an F, okay, because that's what I just labeled it there. Now our second space is A. So I'm going to play that note. That's an A, okay? So I'm going to put, what happened? Oh, it moved it because I played it. All right, this is an A. You may be hearing it when I put it on the staff. Third space is C. Fourth space is E. Okay, now that's just the rule. Okay, the rules that if we're in the treble clef, then the first space is an F, the second space is an A, the fourth space is a C, the second space is an E. And I have that written down here. 4 spaces, F, A, C, E. So we know that this is an F, this is an A, this is a C, and this is an E. Okay, F-A-C-E. And F-A-C-E spells face. Okay, so that's how we remember. 4 spaces, F-A-C-E. Now, let's go to the lines. Okay, I'm grab another quarter note. So, I'm going to put a quarter note here. That's our first line. Our first line, if we follow all the way over here, is an E. Say E. E. This is a G. Second line is G. Third line is B. Fourth line is D. Fifth line is F. Okay, so if we follow all the way over here, this is our E. This is our G. If we follow the line, G is here. B is this one right here. And D, if I follow this line all the way over here, this is a D. And this line, fifth line, is an F. Now, if you have trouble seeing it or it's not making sense, but if you see it, there's a song that I use. There's a song that I use that I was taught, as I said earlier, by my music teacher when I was in middle school. And this is how we identify the notes of the treble clef. 4 spaces, F, A, C, E. 5 lines, E, G, B, D, F. 4 spaces, F, A, C, E. But that's only when we're in the treble clef. I'll say it again. 4 spaces, F, A, C, E. 5 lines, E, G, B, D, F. 4 spaces, F, A, C, E. But that's only when we're in the treble clef. So I'm going to take a break, and I'm going to teach you guys this song, because the song will help us be able to remember, just like we sing the ABCs that help us remember our letters. This song, the treble clef song, will help us remember what the notes of the treble clef are. Also, this sentence that I have here is, every good boy does fine. That helps us remember E, G, B, D, F, the 5 lines, or empty garbage before dad flips. I always thought that was funny. That helps us remember what the 5 lines are. The 4 spaces are face, and our 5 lines are every good boy does fine. How every word of that sentence starts with the first line, E, G, B, D, F, E, G, B, D, F, and so on and so forth. So we're going to sing the song. So everybody come on over to me to my piano, and we're going to sing it. All right, scholars, we're going to sing the treble clef song. And the words to the song are 4 spaces, F, A, C, E, 5 lines, E, G, B, D, F, 4 spaces, F, A, C, E, but that's only when we're in the treble clef. So let's sing it. I'm gonna teach it to you. 4 spaces, F, A, C, E, 5 lines, E, G, B, D, F. 4 spaces, F, A, C, E, but that's only when we're in the treble clef. The whole song. So I'm gonna sing it. 4 spaces, F, A, C, E, 5 lines, E, G, B, D, F. 4 spaces, F, A, C, E, but that's only when we're in the treble clef. Again, 4 spaces, F, A, C, E, 5 lines, E, G, B, D, F. 4 spaces, F, A, C, E, but that's only when we're in the treble clef. Again, 4 spaces, F, A, C, E, 5 lines, E, G, B, D, F. 4 spaces, F, A, C, E, but that's only when we're in the one more time. 4 spaces, F, A, C, E, 5 lines, E, G, B, D, F. 4 spaces, F, A, C, E, but that's only when we're in the treble clef. Okay, scholars, now that we've sung the song, got our voices all warmed up, so we sing that song, the treble clef song, to help us remember that the 4 spaces are F, A, C, E, 5 lines, E, G, B, D, F, which is our third step. Our first step, if we go back, let me put them all up here, identify whether the note is on the line or space. Okay, what line or space is it on? First, second, third, fourth space, first, second, third, fourth, and fifth line. And once you know which line or space the note is on, we sing the treble clef song. Okay, let me actually label this for all my visual learners out there. I just remember to say that, but just in case you need to see it. If the line passes through the note, that means it's on the line. If the note's in between 2 lines, that means it's in the space. So our first step, identify whether the note is on the line or the space. Second step, what line or space is it on? First, second, third, or fourth space. First, second, third, fourth, or fifth line. And third step is once you know which line or space the note is on, sing the treble clef song, which we just sang. 4 spaces, F, A, C, E, 5 lines, E, G, B, D, F, which 4 spaces, F, A, C, E, but that's only when we're in the treble clef. Okay, so that was that sentence thing that helps us remember. I'm gonna get rid of that because I don't want you to think that's a part of the song, because it's not. 4 spaces, F, A, C, E, 5 lines, E, G, B, D, F. 4 spaces, F, A, C, E, but that's only when we're in the treble clef. Now let's go back to our staff. Boom. So what does all that mean? Well, when we put all those steps together, let me get rid of these notes. Whoops, didn't mean to get rid of the letters. Let's get rid of these notes. Okay. So let's look here. I'm going to just move over here. So I'm going to place a note here using all those steps. Let me put the steps over here. Oh, or not. There we go. So using the steps, tell me what this note is. So we're going to do it together. Is this note on the line or the space? Let's look and see. Is the line passing through it? If the line passes through the note, that means it's on the line. If the note's in between 2 lines, that's 2. That means it's in the space. Is the line passing through it, or is it in the space? The line is passing through it, so that means it's on the line. So that's a note that's on the line. What line or space is it on? Is it on the first line, the second line, the third line, fourth line, or fifth line? It looks like it's on the second line, and it is on the second line. Zoom in just a little bit. It is on the second line, not the first, it's on the second. So if it's on the second line, what's our second line? Well, we wouldn't have to sing the entire song. You can sing the entire song if that helps you remember. But so if we're looking for a note on the line, then we just sing the line part of the song. 5 lines. What's our second line? E, G, well, let's count. E, G, B, D, F. E, G, B, D, F. What's our second line? E, G. So our second line is G. So that means that this is a G. That is a G. Okay, so I'm going to put another note here. This time I'm going to put it here. Now, tell me what this note is. Well, how will we know? Let me move this down out of the rafters here. So, how do I identify notes on the treble clef? Identify whether the note is on the line or the space. Is this on the line or the space? How do I know? If the line passes through the note, that means it's on the line. If the note's in between two lines, that means it's in the space. It's in between two lines, so that means it's on the space. So step 2, what line or space is it on? Is it on the first, second, third, fourth space? It is on the first space, not the second. It is on the first. It is not on the second space, not on the third space or the fourth. It's on the first space. So we know that it's on the first space. Now, since we know that, we sing the treble clef song. We could sing the entire song, or we could just sing the part of the song that we're looking for when we're looking for a space. So 4 spaces, F, A, C, E. We're looking for the first space. Let's count them again. 4 spaces, F, A, C, E. What is our first space? 4 spaces, F. Oh, that's our first one. We don't even need to sing the rest of it. 4 spaces, F. Oh, that's our first space. So that means that this is an F. So I'm going to label this here. That's an F. Okay. What's over here? So there we go. All right. I'm going to do a couple more. Go a little bit higher. No, let's stay lower. Okay. So this note, tell me what this note is. Well, let's look at our instructions. First instruction is, how do I identify notes on the treble clef? Identify whether the note is on the line or space. This is this on, how do we know whether it's on the line or the space? If the line passes through the note, that means it's on the line. If the note's in between two lines, that means it's in the space. So, is the line passing through it, or is it in between two lines? To me, it looks like the line is passing through the note, so that means it's on the line. So, is it on our first line? Is it on our second line? Is it on our third line? Is it on our fourth line? Or is it on our fifth line? Let's look here. This is our first, second, third, fourth, fifth line. It is on our first line. That's right. So now that we know that it's on our first line, we sing the treble clef song. And we can sing the entire song, or you can sing the part of the song that you're looking for, which is a line in this case. So 5 lines, E, G, B, D, F. What is our first line? 5 lines, E, G, B, D, F. What is our first line? 5 lines, E is our first line. So if E is our first line in the song, then E is our first line on the staff. So that makes this an E. Okay? So I'm going to label this note so you can see. That is an E. Okay? All right. So let me do a couple more. I'm going to go really high. I'm going to skip around. Now you may notice that as you go up the staff, there's line, space, line, space, line, space, line, space, line, line, space, line, space, line, space. Now, all notes don't just move in line, space. It's not always a pattern. It can be, but not always, okay? But if you go up the staff, you'll see that it's just like, numbers are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, odd, even, odd, even, odd, even, But anyway, so so we go back to our instructions, our steps. How do I identify notes on the treble clef? Is this on the line or the space? Is it on the line or the space? Well, if the line passes through the note, that means it's on the line. If the note's in between two lines, that means it's in the space. So let's look here. Is it in between two lines, or is there a line passing through it? To me, it looks like it's in between two lines because there's no note going right through the middle of the note. There's no line going right through the middle of the note. So we have boom, boom. So that means it's in the space. What line or space is it on? Is it on the first, second, third, or fourth space? Well, let's look. First space, second space, third space, fourth space. So it looks to me like it's on the third space. So our next step, once you know which line or space the note is on, we sing the treble clef song. And you can sing the entire song, or you can sing just the part that you're looking for, which is in this case, we're looking for a note on the space. So we'll just sing 4 spaces, F, A, C, E. Now, since we're looking for a note on the third space, what's our third letter that we sing? 4 spaces, F, A, C. Oh, Well, you don't even have to go any further than that. We don't even have to say E because we're looking for the third space. 4 spaces, F, A, C, boom. So that means that this is a C. So I'm going to label this. All right, scholars. So if I were to play these notes, and the computer may move them around, it'll sound like this. That's what those 4 notes sound. Ta, 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 ta. And notice as they go lower, as the notes go lower, on the staff, they get lower. And then that last one goes up. So that's what we have. So, very good. So I'm going to give you 2 more, and I want you to tell me what these 2 notes are. I'm going to put 2 here. I'm going to put 1 here, some that we haven't done. And I'm going to put another one here. I want you to figure out, based on the instructions that we used, what the first note is here and the next note. So we always read from left to right, just like we read letters, left to right. So we'll start with this one. And then when you're finished with that, go to the next one. So I want you to tell me, start with this one and tell me what order. So if it's this one, you will say this is a blank, and then this is a blank. So you say the first note is a blank and the second note is a blank, okay? So using the words to the song, using the instructions that we use, okay? Let me see if I can stretch these out just a little bit. See, make these a little bit smaller so you can read them all. Now, go to work. I'll give you a few seconds, okay? Go to work. See if you can figure out what the first note is and then figure out what the second note is. Don't worry, I'll wait. Very good. Maybe I'll give you guys some thinking, waiting music or turn and talk music. Oh, can't hear it. All right, scholars, come back in 3, 2, 1. Very good. So I'm sure most of you have already figured out what the answers are, but let's go through it just in case, okay? So first step, identify whether the note is on the line or the space. Second step, what line or space is it on? Third step, once you know which line or space it is on, sing the song, okay? So based on that, I know that this note is an A. And if you figure that out, you got it, okay? So how do I know that? Well, I know that because if I do the steps, this note is on the second space because the lines is in between 2 lines, and it's on the second space because the first space is here, second space here, third space here, fourth space here. So on the second space. And the second space, if I sing the song, 4 spaces, F, A is our second space. So I know that that is an A, okay? And this note, well, we do our steps again. Is this note on the line or the space? If the line passes through the note, that means it's on the line. If the note's in between 2 lines, that means it's in the space. 1, 2, 3. It's on the line because the line is passing through it. Phew. And if we count from the bottom, first line, second line, third line, fourth line, fifth line, never count from the top. We never count from the top, ever, 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 ever. We always count from the bottom. I need to say that. So it's on the 4th line. 1, 2, 3, 4th line. Okay. In the 4th line, 5 lines. If we go down here, 5 lines. E, G, B. Oh, stop right on that 4th line because that's our 4th line. So that makes this A, D. So our 2 notes are A and D. Okay. Let me label them here. I think I can give you just two more, and then we'll be done. Okay. So I'm going to put a note here. I'm going to try and trick you. So don't get tricked. All right. Put a note up here. And I'm going to put another note right here. So I want you to tell me what this one is, and then tell me what this one is. And I'm going to put the instructions right here. Okay. So figure it out. Go to work or turn and talk. Either one if you got somebody to talk to. So I'm going to give you some time to figure it out. Give you some waiting music. One more time. All right, come back in 3, 2, 1. Sorry, let me turn this down. Echo. So, looking here, is this note on the first step? What's our first step? Sorry, I keep going away from it. First step, identify whether the note is on the line or space. This note is on the 4th space because it's on the space because it's in between 2 lines and it's on the 1, 2, 3, 4th space. We know that the 4th space, if we sing the 4 spaces part of the song, 4 spaces, F, A, C, E is our 4th space. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we know that this note is an E. Everybody say E. E. Very good. And this note is on the line. Is it on the line or space? It's on the line because there's a line passing through it, passing right through it. And then is it on the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, or 5th line? It is on the 1st, 2nd, 3rd line. And if we look at our instructions, once you know which line or space is it on, sing the Treble Clef song. 5 lines, and we're looking for the 3rd line, E, G, B. It's a B, okay? So this is an E, and this is a B. So let me label that, E, B. And as a bonus, I wonder if anybody can tell me what this one is. It's on the line. It's on the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th line. What is our 5th line? 5 lines, E, G, B, D, F. That is an F, okay? So I'm going to just label that. All right, scholars. So if I were to play all of these notes, so knowing if you know this system, if you know these steps, then we can be able to read these notes, okay? Knowing all these things, and it takes practice to be able to do it very quickly. So if I were to play all of these notes, this is how it would sound. Oops, can't hear it. Sorry, a little pause there. Let's do it again. 1, 2, ready, go. Ta, 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 ta. All right, so that's what those different notes are. Where I place them on the staff tells us what I'm supposed to play. I'll play it one more time. G, F, E, C, A, D, E, B, F. And then people rearrange these notes and put them in different places and add different things, and that's how music is created. Okay, so scholars, you guys have just learned how to read music. Okay, when you do take this system and you practice it, it gets easier and you get more comfortable. And let's review these steps one more time. How to identify notes on the treble clef. Identify whether the note is on the line or the space. If the line passes through the notes, that means it's on the line. If the note's in between 2 lines, that means it's in the space. Second step, what line or space is it on? Remember, there are 4 spaces and 5 lines. 4 spaces, F, A, C, E, 5 lines, E, G, B, D, F. 4 spaces, F, A, C, E. But that's only when we're in the treble clef, okay? And that's the song. Well, also, once you know that, then you sing the song that I just sang. Kind of went out of order in the instructions, but that's okay. All right, scholars, you guys have done great. Thank you for your patience. I know it was kind of long, And I was really hoping that I'll be able to teach this to you in the classroom, because it's a very valuable step in order, well, it is the step in order for us to be able to learn how to read music. You guys have been doing great. If you ever need to refer to this video again, definitely do so. And I really appreciate you guys tuning in. You guys have a great day. I love you. Have fun. Be safe. And I'll be seeing you very soon.
Yeah, yeah. Here at the prep, we represent all common schools. We are the best. Here at the prep, come and get with me. Hey, hey, if you want to change history. I'm a scholar, I'm a boy.